Greetings, friends. My name is Pavel Stelmach, and I'm glad to present for you the new episode of our daily wrap-up series. I would like to start today's issue with information about the energy system of Ukraine. 2022 was the most difficult year in the history of independent Ukraine. In the first days of the war, we disconnected Ukraine's power system from Russia and Belarus and synchronized it with the European Union. In 3 weeks before the first blows to our infrastructure, we exported electricity to Europe, and already after October 10th, our energy system withstood 11 waves of massive missile attacks. And on New Year's Eve, the Russians struck with the help of Iranian drones. However, none of the 45 drones reached the target. Anti-aircraft defense forces of the Air Force, in cooperation with the anti-aircraft defense of other components of the defense forces of Ukraine, destroyed all of them. At the same time, our energy workers have learned how to prepare for such attacks. Volodymyr Kudrytsky, the chairman of the board NEC Ukrenergo, said in an interview with the Inter channel. On the night of January the 2nd, the Russians again attacked the energy infrastructure with drones. As a result of the night attack, the situation with electricity supply in Kyiv and the central region became more complicated, in connection with which emergency shutdowns are applied. However, warm weather helps to reduce consumption, both on holidays and on weekdays. Accordingly, the need to apply restrictions during the day has decreased.
We have information that Russia is planning a prolonged attack with Shahids. Its bet may be on exhaustion of our people, our air defense, our energy sector. But we must ensure, and we will do everything for this, that this goal of terrorists fails like all the others.
If Russia does not make new attacks on the Ukrainian energy system, it will be possible to stabilize it by the summer. This was announced by Energy Minister Herman Gaushenko in mid-December. The problem was that transformers, one of the most important power equipment, are manufactured according to individual schemes, and the process lasts from 6 to 8 months, and in Ukraine many of them were burned. In addition, there are damaged power stations and distribution stations, and every destroyed energy object is destroyed years of someone's work. For example, it takes several years to build a new high-voltage substation, ensuring its reliable operation in the network in years of daily round-the-clock work of our specialists. Our objects are civil, they are not designed to cushion almost the entire fleet of Russian missiles. One blow is enough to erase the years of work. Therefore, we are already thinking about building a new decentralized energy system.
Plans
for energy decarbonization and green transformation remain relevant. The war has made these challenges even more urgent. We will actively use the potential of renewable energy, solar, wind, hydropower generation, hydrogen technologies. Russian attack push us to a radical reform, building a decentralized energy system. Then it will be less vulnerable to enemy attacks. We are talking about the creation of mini power plants and small generation facilities integrated into the existing energy system.
We have already taken the first steps in such a scheme. In each region, in minor settlements, there is already at least one generator due to scheduled power outages. Therefore, almost every home in Ukraine today has its own small power plant. The Bakhmut fortress is holding on. Every day, Ukrainian titans stand in defense of Ukraine, Europe and the entire civilized world in the Donbas city. The Russians set themselves the goal of capturing the Ukrainian city. They have been trying to take it for almost 7 months, but still they can't. Already even the Kremlin understands that most likely they will not succeed, because we have 500 lines of defense in the city, and every building is impregnable. These are not my words only, or those of our allies. These were said by PMC Wagner head Prigozhin. He wanted to show what good soldiers his criminal subordinates are, but it turned out that anyone would break their teeth against the steel of Ukrainian soldiers. British intelligence believes that Prigozhin, with such statements, is already preparing the groundwork for justifying the failure of the Bakhmut operation. However, it would be wrong to say that this battle is easy for the armed forces of Ukraine. After all, there are reports on social networks about the death or injury of Ukrainian defenders near Bakhmut. Just take a look at this video of a wounded soldier being carried off the battlefield.
Все буде добре, братик. Wszystko będzie dobrze. Все буде добре.
Widać już toczkę.
Все буде добре, братик. Будеш жив.
I want to note that the medic in the car is a Polish volunteer who volunteered to help save people's lives. That's the whole difference. Our eastern neighbors want to take our lives and our country, and the western ones want to save our lives and our country too. This is the difference between caring death and caring life for others. And we are now very grateful to all countries that accept wounded Ukrainians, both military and civilian. Even before the war, many Ukrainians received medical care abroad, but now many Ukrainians need help after polytraumas caused by explosions. After all, amputations are unfortunately one of the biggest injuries and will remain a huge problem even after the war, because unexploded shells will become a new problem for Ukraine, and now the shells are just flying in the hospital.
Было несколько прилетов.
There were several arrivals, as you can see. The building was severely damaged. The roof, the crossing itself was restored. There was a very strong arrival on a rocket into the children's department, and the floor slabs were also damaged.
But of course, the military suffers the most from explosions, and the issue is not only physical injuries. Conscious PTSD, fear of loud explosions. Our boys and girls will live with all this until the end of their life. And this is why our government is already developing programs to restore the life of the military, both in the medical field and simply to return to civilian everyday concerns.
У 2023 році
In 2023, we plan to approve a strategy of transition from military service to civilian life and an action plan for its implementation. The strategy will be based on 4 key needs: economic independence, funds, housing, and medical services, opportunities for military career, retraining, support for veteran business, providing veterans with housing, in particular through compensation of interest rates on mortgages and financial leasing, a 3-level system of free psychological assistance to veterans. All this should be implemented this year.
Of course, war is a terrible sin that leaves its mark on everyone, and according to various historical examples, when there is a hot phase, everyone hopes for the military. People idealize them. But when soldiers return to civilian life, they change. For example, in Croatia, where the war was in the 1990s, people for a certain time saw nothing but hostilities, and when the families were united, they didn't recognize each other. Therefore, we must ensure that a gap does not form between society and our defenders. This is very painstaking work. And finally, I would like to talk about the end of the war. Again and again, Ukraine wants to convey its peace formula to the world. It is step by step, specific and most importantly, achievable. Ukraine's battlefield victories, strong stance by the international community, and Russia's depleting military capability force the Kremlin to seek an operational pause. Russia would then use it to regroup, replenish supplies, and relaunch the armed attack against Ukraine on even wider scale. All the calls by Russia, either directly or through the third countries to start peace negotiations, serve that goal. The Kremlin wants a pause, not peace. Ukraine, to the contrary, is very precise in our vision of the future, just and sustainable peace. On November 15th, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky presented the peace formula of 10 steps. Implemented one by one or simultaneously, they can bring peace to Ukraine, Europe, and the whole world. There is 1. Radiation and nuclear safety, food security, energy security, the release of all prisoners and deported persons, the implementation of the UN Charter and restoration of Ukraine's territorial integrity and the world order, withdrawal of Russian troops and cessation of hostilities, restoration of justice, countering ecocide, preventing escalation, the confirmation to the end of the war.
для того, чтобы зафиксировать факт.
In order to record the fact of mass war crimes of the Russian Federation, the war must be ended with the loss of Russia, after which only the procedure of the legal responsibility of Russia will be launched. Any other options, except for the loss of Russia, will lead to the stagnation of the current situation and the deployment of the next stage of the war.
Ukraine will not make any compromises on its territorial integrity. We will fully restore it within internationally recognized borders. Ukraine is confident that every peace-loving nation of the world can find its own role in implementing certain items of the peace formula and demonstrate leadership in bringing peace closer. Points of the formula are universally applicable and can serve as a basis for conflict resolution and peace efforts all around the world. Ukraine aims to engage not only countries of Europe and North America, but also countries of the Global South to implement the peace formula. Ukraine plans to initiate a peace formula summit at the end of February and sees the United Nations as the best international fora for holding it.
At the end of December, we took important official steps to strip Russia of its status of a permanent member of the UN Security Council and the UN membership in general. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs provided indisputable evidence of Russia's usurpation of the place in the Council of Security by passing the procedure defined by the UN Charter. I will say frankly, in a number of capitals, they learned with surprise about the fact of Russia's illegal presence in the Security Council. They turned a blind eye to this for 30 years. This fact was carefully hidden for 30 years.
In addition, the establishment of the peace on the territory of the UN will help to reboot this organization. After all, Russia, a member of the Security Council, which got there outside of the procedure, blocks any resolutions regarding the introduction of peace. And in general, it started aggression in the 21st century, so maybe Russia has no place in the Security Council or in the entire UN. That concludes our today's video. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for future videos. Subscribe to UATV English and goodbye.